Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. Today I'm talking to Matt from SkyPyre Studios.
Hi, so I'm Matt from SkyPyre. I'm the community manager and at SkyPyre.
In a nutshell, what kind of game are we talking about today?
So we made a game called the Blobs Fight, which is basically a local multiplayer beat 'em up party game.
Why did you choose to make a game like this?
So the original idea from the Blobs was we wanted to try out making a party game. We'd never really done this sort of game before, so we wanted to see if we could do it, and wanted to make a smaller scope game, different type, and just test ourselves out. So we ended up making this. We also like to have our own game nights with friends, and just play a bunch of local multiplayer games. So we wanted to see if we could try it out and make our own and see where that went.
Did the game become what you originally planned it to become before the start of development?
Did the game become what we originally planned? Yeah, I think at its base, I think at its core, yes. Obviously, throughout development on most projects, things will change as issues come up or as discussions are taken. And we at the base we wanted to make a local multiplayer party game, which is what came out, and we wanted to have these Jello-like blobs beat the crap out of each other, and that was the base mechanic. That was the base idea, which has remained throughout. I think, though, many things have been added that made the game better, but we weren't expecting. So a lot of different traps and maps and maybe some of the mechanics developed just through testing that we just didn't even think of originally. So I think the defend was one of them. The Y button, you like project a defensive shield for like half a second, not even. And originally I believe it was a 360 AoE sort of effect, but then we tested it out and it was a little OP, so we changed it to be very much an aimed based defense system. So it was wherever you were looking, and it was very timed based. So you had to really time it. I'm going to do this in this direction when he's attacking me, as opposed to just spamming it all around you and being protected all the time. So things like that we weren't expecting to change, but through testing it did, and it made the game all better for it.
Why did you decide to go with blobs?
I think we wanted. I think we wanted to make a lighthearted game, very lighthearted, cartoony, silly, and just a game that anyone could play. Anyone could just pick up and have fun with. And Blobs, one that fits everything I just said, kind of fits with Blobs. They're funny, they're cartoony, they're silly. Everyone likes them. But I think also because this is like peeking behind the curtain of game development, but like sometimes developers don't necessarily want to go through the pain and the time and effort to make, like, you have to make all the models, the rigs, the animation, to blah 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 blah, all these things just to make the character work. So we made these blobs, and basically all of that was taken care of through the physics. So we could just focus on the actual mechanics and gameplay and maps, as opposed to just tweaking and modeling and rigging these characters.
Awesome. What inspired you to become an indie game developer?
What inspired me to become an indie dev? Oh boy. I think, yeah. So when I was applying for university, I was really interested in graphic design, 3D modeling, that sort of stuff, but I didn't have one thing in specific. I kind of wanted to do everything. And the program that I found and that I applied to and got in, which is where I met all the other SkyPyre guys, that program included everything I wanted to do, and then even more that I'd never even touched. So I learned even more than I, planned on. And then just through projects at school, a lot of them were open-ended, and we had all the tools to make games. We just had to put them together. So we kept teaming up and just wanting to keep making games. So then by the end of school, by the time we graduated, we were like, you know what, we like making games. We're having fun with it. So let's try it out. Let's go with it. So that's how SkyPyre was basically born. We were in a group. We made games, and then we decided let's keep going after school.
Is this your first game?
The Blobs?
Yeah, like professional.
The Blobs Fight is our first, yes, I would say our first professional product, our first professional game. Previous to that, we had made a game called Halen Ballad of the Blade Thief, which was a very different kind of game. Blobs is a local multiplayer party game. Halen is a single-player, third-person action platformer with a strong narrative. So it's very different in terms of games, but that we made in fourth year for our senior project. So it was a year-long project, which is where we really learned a lot more about game dev than we ever previously had. So I would say that was our first major game that we'd ever made, but our actual out-of-school professional on our own game would be Blobs, yes.
For what platforms did you already intend to release this game?
Well, as it's already out, it's on Steam, but you use controllers to play. But we also we were already aiming to have it on consoles, but just through testing and bringing it to events and stuff, we realized very quickly that it really was a console game. Even though we were intending to get it on consoles at some point, that just confirmed, going to these events and hearing people's feedback, it really confirmed that, no, this is a console game. Not it should be on, it is a console game, and we really need to get it on there. So it's kind of like everyone kind of wants their game to be on the big three, so like PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, I guess Switch now. I would love it. We would all love it to have Blobs on all three of those.
But will it also happen?
I'm sorry?
Will it also happen?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. It takes time. You have to. There's a lot of stuff to research, and just it's a whole other ball game from Steam. It's very different. So I don't know. We'll see. If it happens, it'll happen when it happens. I'm not sure.
What do you think is your best attitude in life?
My best attitude in life?
Yes.
Jeez, we just went from, hey, why do you like making games, to life
because
philosophy.
Because what you do in life matches with the job you do, and your job is basically making games. So
fair enough.
If your attitude in life is to be slumpy all the time and not do anything, well, then you won't be successful as a game studio, because that doesn't fit.
That's a very good point, and a very good connection. Okay. I just didn't expect that. All right. I think I'm usually pretty energetic, optimistic, and happy. I try to keep an optimistic mind and looking to the future and being like, oh yeah, then we'll get at this point, we'll be able to do this, and this game will come out, and like we'll do this and this and this, and I'm always hoping and really pushing, working for that future goal, that just that the company that will still that the company will continue to grow and expand and just better games, better products, that sort of stuff.
For how long have you been working on the Blobs Fight?
The Blobs Fight was just under a year's development. So we started, like, the very first bit of prototyping was early August 2017. And we released it on June 21st, 2018. So that's about a month and a half. Yeah, a month and a half less than a year's worth of development. But we worked on it throughout the year, keeping in mind that this was also on off hours, and you know, whenever each of us had time to spare. So it wasn't like we were working on it 40 hours a week either. You know, every day 8 hours, nothing like that. It was very much, I have a few hours, I can get these tasks done.
Just like you had a day job and you did that next to the day job. Exactly,
yeah.
What was your day-to-day process for making this game?
Day-to-day process? Well, so something we learned in school, which is actually a really good practice, is the idea of sprints. So basically, you take your project and you break that up into tasks and milestones, and then you take those milestones and you break those up into smaller tasks, and then you break those up into smaller tasks, and you keep doing that until you get like these very small tasks. And then with these milestones, then you can split those up into chunks of tasks. So saying from this time between, I don't know, it depends on how long you want these sprints, but we usually do a week or 2 week sprints depending on the project. I think for Blobs it was 1 week sprints. So basically it was like, okay, this week we're going to get this, and this done. Now, next week we're going to get this done. And then with these 3 sprints, we'll get this one milestone done, which is, I don't know, a game mode. Let's say King of the Hill. Let's get King of the Hill done in the next 3 weeks, which is split into 3 sprints, which is then split into multiple tasks throughout each sprint. So we learned that process in school, and we applied it to Halen, and then we continued with Blobs and continued to get better with it. So basically, each week we had a meeting about what was done, what needs to be tested, and then it was tested, and then what needs to be done this next week, and then we just keep going like that. And then in terms of just working on our own at home, it was really just get your tasks done, because not every task was appointed to everyone, obviously. So you would get your own tasks, you know, however many you had, you'd get those done again on the hours that you had, so usually in the evenings or on weekends. So that the next week, when at the next meeting, then you could report, okay, everything was done. Now we can move on to the next sprint and not fall behind. Or if something wasn't done, then that would be moved to the next sprint. But keeping in mind that every task that wasn't done for that one sprint would delay other tasks. So you had to be careful of that.
Will your day-to-day process be the same for future games you make?
Generally, yeah, I think so. We're still using the sprint process, the sprint mentality. We are using different tools. So way back when we were using Trello, and then we moved on to another one called Hack and Plan, which just has more features and is more granular, so you can be more specific and due dates and whatnot. So that's a way to keep us organized. So generally speaking, we're going to keep it about the same, but throughout Blobs and, you know, generally in projects, you'll notice little areas where there might have been bottlenecks or inefficiencies. So we're going to work on getting those better, working on those and making those more efficient.
What were the biggest inspirations for the Blobs Fight?
Biggest inspirations for the Blobs Fight? Inspirations came in different ways and were applied in different ways. So they could have been in just art, concept art, just like, oh, that looks cool, but also in different games, so different mechanics or different ideas in games, movies or books or something, like for different ideas and visual looks. So in terms of the actual game, a single player local multiplayer party game. You can think of a couple like Gang Beasts, Star Wall, games like that. So we wanted much like those games. We wanted a very simple game that you could just pick up and play, and it's one screen, very arena based, and just a lot of fun for anyone to just pick up and play and just party basically. And it's very funny and cartoony. I don't know where the mechanics actually came from. So dash, defend, and ground pound. I'm not entirely sure where those came from. I think we just came up with those as we were discussing how to play. But for what was it? The actual mechanic of hitting a blob and dropping pieces, making them smaller, and then you suck up those bits and you become bigger. That is very similar in mechanic to something like Diep.io. Or no, not Diep.io, Agar.io, sorry. Diep is another one. Agar.io. So that's like the web browser one that is very popular, or was very popular anyway. So we basically took that and made it into more of a Smash 3D game, more fast-paced, and I think that was a big inspiration. Yeah.
What makes your game different from others?
Our game is different because it combines the joy the joy of beating up. This sounds weird, but you get the joy of beating up your friends through these blob avatars in these wildly just all over the place maps and situations. So the fun thing with ours is there's no set theme. It's not like a story where everything has to be consistent. You can be fighting on a castle one round and then on the moon the next. It doesn't matter. It's all over the place. So anyone can, like, I don't know. There's no, you're just all over the place, and it's just so wild and cartoony that you can't help but smile and have fun. Anyone can play from any age, and it doesn't matter if you're the oldest or the youngest, if you've played games before or not. The controls are so simple that anyone can play with, and but you can combine them in a way that you can actually develop your own strategy and gameplay. So not only are they simple for anyone to start playing quickly, but you can, through practice, you get better and better and develop your own strategies. And it actually becomes more of a challenge as you get better and better.
What do you think is the most interesting part of the game?
Most interesting part? So I think one of, anyway, is the fact that we let the players really mess with values. And what I mean is you can go in and basically create your own custom games. So you can set the timer length, make it either 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, or like forever. The game could go forever if you wanted. You can also change whether there's teams or not, how many maps you're playing, that sort of stuff, but that's general game rules. You can also go into the blob values themselves and actually change speed, starting blob size, starting blob, how big they can get, how small they can get, how much damage they deal, like a lot of stuff like that, which creates these crazy, really weird game modes where people have created like insta kill, or just first to the bottom is one we call. So you're like the biggest blob, but you deal very minimal damage. So you're just trying to kill each other to be who can be the smallest faster, stuff like that. And there's one where I just really like how you can let players, you give the players the ability to make all these edits, and then you see what they come up with, and some of the stuff that comes out is ridiculous and hilarious, and they're combinations that we can't test for everything. So they're combinations that the players come up with, and they make it. So it's almost like they're creating their own game out of it.
You didn't test everything. That's bad.
Well, you can't. we tested as much as we could, but when you let the players, combine everything or like change all the values, there's like infinite possibilities that you can't account for everything. But we try our best, and honestly, if the game breaks because they're too fast or too small and they fly out of the map, it just makes it funny. It just adds to the wild cartoony factor.
What game engine did you use, and why did you decide to use this game engine?
So we used Unity, which I feel like a lot of indie devs use, but we used it because we, way back in fourth year for school, when we were making Halen, we had a multi-hour meeting specifically about which engine to use, and we ended up using Unity and just continued with Blobs because we were most comfortable with it. We'd used Unreal a little bit before, but we were most comfortable with Unity. We had more experience with it, and it basically came down to, did we want to be able to produce visuals and art quickly, or did we want to be able to produce prototypes and coding quickly? And we chose coding first, because if you have a bunch of art and stuff and it's not coded, you don't have a game. You just have a broken bunch of art. But if you have a bunch of code but no art, you still have a game, and you can add in the art later. So that was the deciding factor. Let's be able to prototype and work and actually test mechanics. So that's why we went with Unity, and then add in art later. And then since we were already on the Unity train, we just kept going.
What setbacks did you encounter during the project, and do you feel like you learned anything from them?
Sorry, what?
What setbacks did you encounter during the project? And
Setbacks.
Did you learn anything from that?
What setbacks? Oh boy. Let me think here. I mean, so this is a bit harder. Well, no, they're okay. Well, in terms of the programming side, I don't know exactly. I know generally what things were, but I wasn't actually coding, so it's harder for me to explain on that. But there were areas of like where weird physics were happening, where the blob would do this weird. So right now in the game, when the blob is running around and doing things, it stays as a relatively round blob shape. Way back when, we had this weird bug where if the blob moved too fast, or if he was too big or whatever, he would, like, his nodes, his physics nodes would like spread out and start spreading away from each other. So basically you'd have these weird stretched out points coming out of the blob, and the blob would just be like freaking out and it would just go flying off into space. So there were some weird physics things like that, where like they'd have too much speed or something. So we fixed that, but those were weird. So I'm not entirely sure how we fixed that, but I think it was in the code somehow that we dealt with the physics. We changed it a little bit, but that came up with some funny glitches, but not at all what we wanted. In terms of modeling and arts assets, setbacks, I don't think there were many setbacks on that front. I think it was more just testing and realizing like, oh, here's a map, I just made this thing, and then we test it and realize that, oh, actually that's not at all that's not the way this should work. So actually go and redo this or change this. So it wasn't so much a setback as testing and having to redo certain aspects. So like for our purposes, the blobs don't really generally like hard corners. So 90 degree angles are usually pretty good, but anything more acute to that, and the blobs will get stuck, and it's weird. So we had to really design for that.
Well, the stretched out blob thing sounds funny.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time, what would you do different?
Ooh. What would I do different? If I go back in time, what would I do different? I think... what would I do different? Well, one thing I would do different is... the original idea was that this game grew in scope more than we expected it to, and took longer. So we were planning on having this game be a very small scope, very small game, very quick development cycle. So maybe 6 months, maybe, from start to end. So it was going to be very simple, very small, and it just grew and grew into something way better. But so because we had that mentality of short development cycle, let's just get it out, in this base form, we didn't necessarily change that mindset. So basically I had the idea that, oh yeah, it'll come out the game will be released in February. It came out in June. So, it was like, yeah, we can get it done. So we kept thinking that we could get it done earlier and earlier, but then we kept having to push the release date. So if I could go back in time, I would change it to be to get rid of that mindset and just don't even worry about the release date. Just work on the game, and then when you feel it's ready, release it like 2 months later. When you think the game is done, release it 2 months later, so that you have 2 months to really just finish and tweak absolutely everything and make it exactly how you want it, instead of just pushing and just feeling like you have to get it out.
Well, that would be a really good mindset.
Yeah.
If you could advise a new indie game developer, what would you tell him?
If I could give him advice?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would expect them to have some sort of passion for it. I would expect them to actually enjoy what they're doing and be realistic and mindful that the chances that you'll get, that one big hit that everyone buys and you become a millionaire, billionaire, whatever, that chance is like slim to none. So just keep that in mind. This is mainly more of a passion project and more for fun, and you enjoy doing what you want to do. So keep that in mind. Don't do it for the money, basically. And also do it with people you enjoy working with. Find a team that you can work with, not necessarily your friends, because we're very lucky in SkyPyre that we were all friends, but we also work well together. But sometimes working with your friends can be distracting, so pros and cons. So I would tell them to find a team that you work well together, that you are able to come out with cool projects, good ideas, and you have good communication. And try to have a well-rounded team, not all programmers, but also art and UI and several, areas like that.
What do you feel is success for an indie game developer?
What do I feel is success?
Yeah.
What an indie dev would consider success?
Well, what do you consider success?
What do I consider success? Well, we set out to make blobs, and we did. So I would say that's one success. We came out with a game outside of school with no resources but our own and our own time. So I'm very proud of that fact, that we were able to, stay disciplined and dedicated enough that we were able to come out with an idea and make it into an actual project or an actual product and actually put it out on Steam, because we had never put anything out on Steam. So that was another success, kind of like hand in hand with the finishing the game, is getting it out there for people to actually actually go and play at home and have it as a viable product. So I'm very proud of that fact. There's I don't know, there's something good. You feel good when you release your game, but then it's also out there on a store where people can actually buy it as a product. It feels nice. It's like, wow, I accomplished this thing that I've been working on for a long time. So I'd say I consider that a success, is taking the idea and actually making something real.
To make other game developers learn, what resources would you recommend?
To learn to be a game developer?
Yeah, or at least they probably know basic programming and basic art, but yeah, they don't. Just imagine that they haven't developed any game.
Right. Okay. So you don't need to be able to do everything. You don't need to be able to program and do art and do 3D and animate and all these things. But you should have some sort of understanding, at least a basic understanding of what's happening in all of those. So if, in my case, because of school, I learned programming and 3D and animation, and like our program was special in that you learned everything, but you didn't specialize in everything. You just learned everything. And then it was based on your own interest and your own, I guess, skill that you would either be better at a thing or not. So in my case, yes, I can do programming. I'm like mediocre programmer, but I'm in no way a programmer, right? I don't consider myself that, but I do understand it enough that I can do some things. But I also understand how to talk to a programmer, so we can talk about logic and stuff, so that when I'm doing a model for a character, I can still communicate with this programmer saying, hey, I have this thing, I have a rig and everything. How do I present this to you, that you can actually code this, like attach this to the animation and make it work in the game, So you can at least try to find some sort of base understanding of the different aspects, so you can actually communicate with the rest of your team. Communication is key, and if you can't even talk to each other, then nothing will get done. It'll just be a broken mess.
You are making it sound like programmers don't speak English.
No, that's not what I mean. But like, I know I might be exaggerating a little bit, but like, if I've never touched programming ever, I might think, it's super easy, and oh yeah, you can make you can make this mechanic work, because heck, I made this graphic. Like, look, I made this super cool animation. Here you go, programmer, just do it. Just do it. But then you need that communication so that the programmer knows what you're doing, what you have created, and how it's supposed to work. And it's just, I might be exaggerating that you can't communicate, but at least a bare understanding, in my experience, of the other aspects of the game helps in understanding how to actually do your own job as well.
I am very glad that your programmer speaks English too.
Yes, we all speak English.
What do you think about the current marketing strategies in the indie game industry?
I think they're good. I've been learning a lot myself on just from other indie game developers, and I think it's very good the way they're doing it. I think most indie game developers are basically all doing very good strategies and implementing them properly. The problem is that there's so many of them that you have to somehow break through that, and that's where the new innovative ideas come out of. But in terms of just marketing in general, what indies do is, they'll be on the social media, obviously, but they'll also set up servers and talk directly with their community and engage them, which is a great idea. And they also talk to each other. They talk to other indie game developers so that the community is more tight and is more friendly to each other. So we actually help each other out. So if I know that your game was coming out, I'll maybe post about it a few times, and when your game is out, then I'll retweet it and say, hey guys, go check out this awesome game made by this guy. It's super cool, and we all support each other. So not only is everyone marketing their own thing on their own time in their own way, but also where everyone's helping out, which helps spread the word, and almost creates a new marketing strategy in itself.
Where do you see the indie game market going in a few years?
In a few years? Oh God. Well,
That will be involved.
Yeah, as resources are becoming even more, available. Like they're so available right now. Just documentation and like things like Unity and Unreal. You can just download that for free and work on it for free, and all the documentation is there for free. Like everything is there. There's a million YouTube videos for all the tutorials you could ever want, and everyone is more than willing to help you out if you ask them. So that's why there's so many indie game devs now, is because it's so widely available. So in a few years, oh man, I don't know. It's like I want to say that there will be even more of them because resources will be even more available, but I don't even understand. I can't even imagine how it could be more available than it is now. But I think for sure that some small companies or small indie game devs that you see now popping up here and there, I think in a few years they will be some of the bigger companies out there. Maybe not. Maybe they won't become, like the AAA, like EA and Ubisoft and stuff, because I feel like indie game devs want to keep that sort of, I don't know, that atmosphere. I guess there's a difference between working at the offices of a AAA versus the office of an indie game. It feels different. It's less corporate, right? So I think even the biggest indie game devs in the coming years, even the biggest companies that arise, will try to stay small enough that they keep that sort of genuine indie feel.
Which other indie developer, if any, offered you support or knowledge in creating this game?
So in terms of the actual development of the game, that was mainly us.
It can be development, can be marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of the development itself, I think that was basically us learning and just based on our own experiences. But and then every so often maybe on a forum or something asking here and there. But I think the most help and support came through online social media and marketing, as well as at events. So when we'd go to events and cons and stuff like that, that's where we got to meet a lot of the other indies, because we were all in the same area next to each other. So we'd meet each other there, and then we'd find out about each other's games. And then, as I was saying, like we'd help each other out. Like, hey, check out their game, and they're working on this cool thing, and this is a cool project. So in that front, but then also on certain aspects. So like a group called Breakfall Games, which are the guys who created Starwall and now Pizza Titan Ultra. We were pretty close to that with them. And we were asking them, like, how do you get your game on Steam? Because we've never done this, but they had before. So they gave us a bunch of help and ideas on how to set up your page and where to even start, because that's a big one. So it's local companies like Breakfall or Steel Crate Games that really helped us out with Steam and marketing and spreading the word.
Is there an AAA studio you would work for if you could?
Is there a AAA company I would work for?
Yeah, if you could.
I mean, from what I see, Blizzard would be cool. Because I love Overwatch, and StarCraft is awesome, and Warcraft and all their games are super cool, and I love everything they come out with, all their cinematics, animations, all that sort of stuff is super cool too. I love their art style, and it just seems like a fun place to work, so I'd say Blizzard.
Well, Blizzard is really cool because the people that work there actually play the games they make. It's really funny.
Yeah, that too, yeah. That's super fun.
Which game, indie or AAA, do you wish you had ever worked on?
Overwatch. I wish I'd worked on Overwatch. That would have been super cool. I'm trying to think of other games. Oh, geez. I had one and now it's gone. Oh.
I totally don't ask different questions.
I can't think of anything else right now. But yeah, but for sure, Overwatch would have been super cool to work on.
Have you ever worked for other gaming companies?
I have not. No. It's only been SkyPyre.
Where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up? In the Ottawa area, Ottawa, Canada. Ottawa is the capital of Canada. For those who don't know, but yeah, we all basically grew up around here. Did our schooling, and then we all met in university.
What were your childhood interests?
Oh man, I've always loved to draw. I've been drawing since I can remember, and basically, that's how I got into high school with an interest of Photoshop and Illustrator and that sort of stuff, which then developed into why I applied to the program at university. So I'd say drawing was one huge part of it. I also really always loved making things. I was going to say building, but that's not quite right. Making things. So growing up, I always loved, and I still do, I always loved city builders and survival simulators, those sort of games where you got to manage basically a whole city or a town, or like RTSs, those sorts of things. So those were fun, but you also, going back to the making thing, you got to make a city or make an economy, to make an army and, go destroy the enemy or whatever. So that's one form of making. Drawing is another form of making. I also love to build things, so like Lego and woodworking and that sort of stuff. So again, making. So I was very much into drawing and creating and create characters and stories, which is, I guess, all makes sense to go into game dev. I think those were two major things as a kid that I remember, was really my love of creating and making things and drawing.
Well, the most given answer to that is playing video games, so...
Exactly, yeah.
What is your favorite video game of all time?
Oh my god!
It's based on your opinion.
I don't know if I have a single favorite one. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been able to answer that question with this is it. But I can say that one game that I thoroughly have always enjoyed, and one of my earliest game experiences, was Age of Mythology, which I still play today. I think it's an early 2000s. I haven't actually checked, but I think it's an early 2000s RTS game. And I've always loved playing it. It was one of the first video games I really played and got into. And I don't know, it in terms of graphics, yes, it may be a little dated, a little bit, but it still holds up. It's still so much fun. And yeah, I think that would be, if not my favorite, it's pretty high up there.
What is your favorite video game of this year and why?
Of this year, the Blobs Fight, obviously.
A game someone else made.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Well, what came out this year? Beat Saber. I think Beat Saber.
Okay.
It is honestly. It's something else. It's a stroke of genius. I absolutely adore it. I just can't get enough of it, which is why I really want to get a VR system so I could play hours and hours.
No, that is fine. But that was also the last question.
What's that?
Well, that was the last question.
Oh, okay.
We are out of questions. Do you have other things you want to say?
Yeah, go buy the Blobs Fight. We need the money, please. We're so poor. No, no. I think just going with the other questions for like starting out indie devs. For anyone looking into they don't know anyone who may have some sort of interest in starting to make games but don't know how to even get into the industry. Take it from me and my team. We had no idea either. We were in school, and we just decided to do it, and now we're in the industry. So it's very much just a decision. Do I want to make games? If the answer is yes, then just do it. Just start making games. If you don't know how, then there's tutorials, go to school, whatever. Find resources. There's plenty out there. Do the research and practice. But if you actually want to start making games and being in the industry, it's just a mindset. It's just a decision. You just decide, I'm going to do this, and then you start doing it, and then you just have to, join some Discord servers, join some Facebook groups, reach out, go to different gaming events. You'll very quickly find a lot of people, and they're very open. And go to game jams. Game jams is the way to really, if you have absolutely no idea, it's a great way to start.
Awesome. Well, then we are done for now. I want to thank you for all of this time for doing this, because it's really nice from you. Yeah,
no problem. It's a lot of fun.
For the viewers, every link for the Blobs Fight and for SkyPyre Studios will be in the description below, so that will be all fine.